Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad podcast with Chris Finn, a production of P4S Golf. Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. I'm your host, Chris Finn, and today we're going to diffuse some ticking time bombs, as well as some, just general misunderstanding or no understanding whatsoever of back pain, particularly in the low middle back. Why the heck do you get it there? Where is it coming from? And is there anything you can do about it? Right. So that's the topic we're going to talk about today. A couple episodes ago, we talked about low back pain just on one side. So it's very common in golfers to have low back pain just on your right side or just on your left side. So if that sounds like something you experience, definitely go check that episode out. I believe it was episode 52, but it's definitely a couple episodes back from this one. So go check that one out if you have one-sided back pain. Actually, I would do that after you've listened to this, because this also usually applies as well in some way, shape, or form. A lot of golfers will get pain not only just on one side, but it may feel like it's kind of like in the center and even kind of radiate across your low back, but it feels like it's kind of both sides. And one of the biggest, so obviously the first misconception is that you have a back problem. 9.9 times out of 10, that is not the case. If you do have a true like disc issue or something along those lines, there's usually nerve pain that's coming along with it, and it's going down your leg into your foot. But if it's just kind of like that tightness, or it feels like your low back is just grabbing, particularly like hard in that center, it feels like there's almost like somebody's got like twisting a knot in that middle center low back, kind of right over your sacrum, or maybe a little higher in that L4, L5 area. A lot of the times, so there's two places that this comes from, generally speaking. So obviously doesn't cover every instance, but this covers a lot of them. So the first is that it a lot of times comes from your deep hip external rotators, which are a group of muscles that are around your sit bones. So on each of your butt cheeks, if you're sitting in a chair or sitting in the car right now, you kind of stick your hand underneath your butt cheek, you can feel a little bony spot that you're kind of sitting on. Think about it if you sit on a hard bar stool. Where you feel the kind of bones hitting, those are your PIIS, posterior inferior iliac spines, or ischial tuberosities, kind of down in that area. The big bones are usually the ischial tuberosities, which are like a bony part on your hip bone that hit that spot. So kind of in that area, all around there is where all your deep hip external rotators are. So if you're getting pain in the low back, the number one place to start looking would be there. And the way you look there is get a softball, a lacrosse ball, or a baseball. I will warn you, a lacrosse ball and a baseball will be more intense than a softball because they're a little smaller surface area. They'll dig a little deeper. But basically, you get one of those, you sit on the ground, you sit on that ball on one of your butt cheeks, and basically work that ball around that ischial tuberosity, that little bony spot, that your sit bone. Okay, we're just going to call it sit bone from now on. So work it around your sit bone on that one side, nice and slow. And you probably are going to hit a spot that makes you think of a bunch of four-letter words that you may or may not have already known. You may make some up. And so if you're sitting on that, so let's say it's under your right leg, right? It's under your right butt cheek. And you're going to kind of bend your right foot up, so your right knee is bent. And then you kind of like drop your right knee down towards the ground. So you're kind of leaning a little bit towards the side that the ball is on, with that knee kind of bent and out to the side, almost like if you were going to sit Indian style, or crisscross applesauce is what my kids call it these days, right? We have your two ankles kind of crossed in front of you, and you're sitting down on the ground. So that right knee or whatever, or the left side, if you're doing your left side, whichever side the ball is on that you're rolling around that sit bone, that knee is bent up and kind of laid out to the side. That lets those external rotators in the hips shorten up, which allows you to dig a little deeper in with the ball. And if you hit some spots that making you jump, that are really uncomfortable, just sit there, breathe, leave it, right? So you just go nice and slow till you find a spot that hurts like hell, leave it, breathe, and just try to let that knee kind of drop down to the ground as much as you can. You may feel it twitching, you may feel it like it will eventually ease up, but those muscles attach up into that kind of the back of the sacrum there. And that will cause like kind of a tug of war, and it'll cause tension in the central part of the low back. So that'd be the number one place to look. The number two place to look is going to be your psoas or iliacus area. So these are deep hip flexors that come from the inside of your femur or your thigh bone and come up and attach along the lumbar, the side of each of your lumbar spines. So you have two of these. You have one on your left, one on your right. The easiest way to find these would be go to YouTube and just type in par for success, psoas, PSOAS release, and you can see the video there. We'll put the link in the show notes here as well. The other is, if I can try to describe it for you best I can, if you get a softball and kind of put it, if you think where your belly button is, put it just off to the side, like to the side of where your, quote unquote, six-pack muscles would be. And then you're kind of lay on it and let that ball kind of go into the side of your belly. And basically from belly button all the way straight down into the hip bone, that's where that psoas tracks. So when you're laying on the ground with the softball in that area, if you kind of relax, breathe out, you'll feel the ball kind of sink in. And you may actually feel, particularly if it's bad, you may feel it actually radiate. You may feel it in your back. You may feel some tightness or discomfort in your back. And that means that the psoas is basically referring that pain or is involved in causing that pain, to that low back area too. So between this episode, and I believe it was episode 52, where we talked about the one-sided low back pain, those couple areas that we talk about in terms of addressing if you're getting those low back issues, help to release the tension and obviously all the musculature is in your hip. It's not in your back. Like, we're not telling you to do anything in your back. Your back gets tight as a response to the tightness around it. Think of it as a tug of war, and basically all the muscles in the hip are pulling hard down. And so that back muscle grabs in order to pull back up, right? To keep, basically an attempt to keep some sort of homeostasis there. So central back pain, that's when we look in the deep rotators in the hip around your sit bone. And then you can also look psoas and iliacus up in the side of the belly. And then if you have one-sided low back pain, which we talked about in episode 52, that's when you're looking more kind of in the glute med, glute min, maybe some TFL. It tends to be more unilateral in nature. Now, some of you will experience this just at the end of the round. It kind of gets tight afterwards, or maybe you feel it tightening as the round goes on. There's some cases where this stuff will grab and people will say they, quote unquote, I threw my back out. No, you didn't throw your back out. You spazzed your hips out and then your back locked up in response. So that's the proper explanation of what actually happened. Nobody actually throws their back out. Okay. And I'm using air quotes there. That's not a real thing. But it's what we feel like happened, right? We feel like our back just like locked up. That is actually a protective response in response to what's going on in the hip. So the key to get rid of the back discomfort is actually to get on the ball, lacrosse ball, softball, baseball, whatever you got, and try to release the tension in the musculature that is actually seizing up, trigger pointed and locked up. And once you release that, all of a sudden the back relaxes. So, you obviously can try to do the heat and the cold and stuff on the low back. You can try to Advil the hell out of it. But that'll just kind of put a mask or a Band-Aid over what the actual cause of the problem is. The true problem that I really want to drive home in just the quick short episode here is that it's coming from your hips, potentially coming from the psoas or kind of those deeper hip flexors too. But anyway, quick, dirty episode here. Just get to the meat of what you guys needed to know. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Hopefully it diffused a few myths of kind of that you had a back problem or something along those lines. And let me reiterate again, if you are getting nerve pain, so like shooting, burning pain down into your foot, that likely could be coming from a nerve impingement, in your lumbar area that's radiating down to the foot. If it's not going all the way into the foot, you always want to check off the boxes of the soft tissues influences, because muscles can refer like nerves in terms of discomfort and pain. So just something that you can kind of try to weed out yourself. And most of the time, that's actually what the problem is. A lot fewer people have nerve impingements or those sorts of things than we think. It's just, unfortunately, trigger point and muscle referral stuff is not a common topic taught in medical schools and physical therapy schools. It's not. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me, but it's not. So I wish it was, and hopefully it will be at some point. But until then, you've been armed with the knowledge to diffuse those pains if they come in. And hopefully you found this helpful, and appreciate you hanging out. And we'll catch you on the next episode.